I am 82 years old now. My hands shake when I pour tea. My knees remind me of every staircase I ever climbed. I live in a small, quiet home. Middle class, always was, always comfortable. And I want to tell you something before my voice disappears into time. Most people don't stay poor because they are lazy, or stupid, or unlucky. That is the lie we were taught to protect the system that trained us. People stay poor because they were trained to think small. I was trained that way too. Trained to be grateful. Trained to be obedient. Trained to believe that survival was success. And by the time I realized the difference between comfort and freedom, decades were already gone. I worked hard, harder than most. I showed up early. I stayed late. I did everything they said a good man should do. And I believed deeply that if I just kept my head down long enough, life would reward me. It did not. It paid me just enough to keep me calm, tired, and quiet. Let me start with the first lesson I learned, far too late. Salary is the slowest way to ever get rich. A job gives you comfort, not freedom. It gives you routine, not power. Every raise I celebrated was already eaten by inflation, taxes, and time. Employers don't pay you what you're worth. They pay you what keeps you from leaving. Your income is capped the moment it depends on hours. I didn't see it then, but I was renting my life out in small pieces, one paycheck at a time. I used to believe loyalty would be rewarded, that if I stayed long enough, they would take care of me. What they took care of was the business. What I took home was just enough to survive another month. Wealth doesn't come from obedience, it comes from ownership. And I owned nothing but excuses. The second lesson hurts even more when I look back at old photos. Rich people buy assets, poor and middle-class people buy lifestyles. I bought cars I didn't need, clothes to impress people I didn't like, and symbols of success that quietly drained my future. Assets pay you while you sleep. Lifestyles demand payment forever. Poor people try to look rich. Rich people stay invisible. Every purchase I made either fed my future or starved it. I didn't know how often I chose hunger. If something doesn't produce income, it is not an asset. It is a liability wearing a smile. No one told us that. Or maybe they did, and we were too distracted by comfort to listen. Then there is the great secret everyone wants to skip: compounding, not hustle, not motivation, not grinding yourself into the ground. Small, smart moves repeated for years will always beat massive effort done once. Time rewards patience, not urgency. Starting late is the most expensive mistake a person can make. I waited. I thought I had time. Wealth is boring consistency. It is not exciting. It doesn't feel heroic. That's why most people never do it. Time is more powerful than talent. I have seen brilliant men grow old and broke. I have seen average men grow quiet and wealthy. The difference was never intelligence. It was time plus consistency. Another truth that stings is this: the middle class is addicted to safety. Safety feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels smart. But safety kept me trapped longer than fear ever could have. A stable income creates a fragile mind. You stop questioning. You stop imagining. You stop risking. Risk avoided early becomes regret later. The rich don't avoid risk. They learn to calculate it. Playing safe feels wise. But it is the riskiest strategy of all when time is limited. I spent years avoiding risk and decades living with regret. Fear would have hurt less. Debt is another thing we were never taught to understand. Debt is either a tool or a trap. Bad debt funds consumption. Good debt funds assets. I borrowed to impress. Others borrowed to grow. Interest worked against me and for them. The rich use leverage like a knife. The poor sit on it until it cuts them. If you don't understand leverage, you don't escape it. You become its victim. I also believed, foolishly, that degrees were the golden key, that education guaranteed income. Degrees expire, skills compound, high-income skills create leverage, schools teach obedience, markets reward value. I learned too late that income follows usefulness, not certificates. Learn what people pay for, not what sounds impressive at dinner parties. Delayed gratification is where most people fail, and where freedom is quietly built. Saying no now buys freedom later. Most people trade freedom for comfort, and call it adulthood. The rich delay pleasure, the poor delay discipline. Short-term sacrifice unlocks long-term power. Discipline outlives motivation every single time. Motivation fades, habits remain. Environment is another invisible force that shapes income. You earn close to what your circle earns. Poor advice often comes from comfortable people who never needed to think bigger. Rich thinking is rare because rich environments are rare. I stayed in the same rooms for too long, listening to the same limits repeated by familiar voices. You must upgrade rooms before you can upgrade income. Change rooms or stay the same. It really is that simple. The wealthy think in decades, not paychecks. Short-term thinking keeps you working forever. Real wealth plans span 10, 20, 30 years. Urgency kills strategy. Patience multiplies outcomes. If your plan fits inside a single year, it is too small. I planned month to month. Others planned lifetimes. And finally, the lesson that matters most. Freedom is the only real goal. Everything else is a distraction dressed up as success. Money, status, applause, achievements on paper. None of it means anything if your time is not yours. Money without control of your hours is just a prettier cage. You can afford more comfort inside it, but you are still locked in. Money was never meant to be collected for its own sake. Rich people who truly understand the game do not buy things first. They buy time. Time to think, time to rest, time to walk away, time to say no. Things break, fade, and lose their shine. Time compounds, time heals, time creates space for clarity. Without time, even luxury feels rushed and hollow. The end goal was never numbers on a screen. It was choice, the ability to wake up without permission, to decide when you work, how you work, and whether you work at all. True wealth is not excess, it is autonomy. Choosing your days, choosing your pace, choosing your life instead of inheriting one designed by fear, obligation, or survival. Now listen to me carefully. At 82, regret is not about money lost. It is about years wasted believing comfort was security. Comfort feels safe, but it slowly anesthetizes ambition. It keeps you warm while your potential quietly starves. You don't notice the damage at first. That is what makes it dangerous. Security that costs your growth is not protection. It is a trade you did not fully understand. Years slip by while you tell yourself, later. Later when things are stable. Later when conditions are perfect. Later when you feel ready. And then, one day, later becomes never. Not because you failed, but because time ran out. The earlier you break free, the cheaper it is. The longer you wait, the more it costs. Every year adds interest to fear, habits harden, energy declines, and options narrow. Time does not forgive hesitation. It does not negotiate. It only charges interest, and the bill always comes due. I tell you this not to impress you, but to warn you. Do not make my life your lesson. Learn while time is still on your side.